Hello everyone, welcome to another series of Mind Map. Today's topic of discussion is forest rights in India. First of all, we will have a look at its historical background, issues with forest rights, FRA 2006, declining forest produces, importance of the Act, challenges and way forward. So first of all, let's have a look at the historical background of the topic. The scheduled tribes have for long been in symbiotic relationship with the forest. The forest policies in both colonial and post-colonial India did not recognize the symbiotic relationship of the STs with the forest, which is reflected in their dependence on the forest as well as in their traditional wisdom regarding conservation of the forest. This living led to customary rules of use and extraction governed by ethical beliefs and practices. Since colonial times, focus was shifted from using forest for sustenance of local communities to a state resource for commercial interest. Industrialization has led to displacing the tribal people from their natural habitat. Now let's discuss about the issues faced by forest dwellers. Lack of social infrastructure, that is health, education, sanitation in the tribal areas. The poor access of tribal and forest dwellers to the public distribution system. Over-reliance on forest produces for food and livelihood. Further, the collection, use and sale of minor forest produce by forest dwellers also gets severely affected due to the pandemic. The particularly vulnerable tribal groups living in remote and scattered geographical locations in India are barely surviving. The dilution of EIA laws and policies under the theme of self-reliant India to boost the economy has increased their hardship. Land acquisition rules also neglected tribal people's dependence on forest and minor forest produce. Now let's have a look at FRA 2006. The Forest Rights Act or FRA 2006 recognizes the rights of the forest-dwelling tribal communities and other traditional forest dwellers. It provides the right to forest resources on which these communities were dependent for a variety of needs, including livelihood, habitation, and other socio-cultural needs. The Act encompasses rights of self-cultivation and habitation, which are usually regarded as individual rights. The Gram Sabha is also a highly empowered body under the Act. The Act enjoins the responsibility of conservation and protection of biodiversity upon the Gram Sabha and rights holders. The Gram Sabha shall be the authority to initiate the process for determining the nature and extent of individual or community forest rights. Objectives of the Act are to undo the historical injustice occurred to the forest-dwelling communities, to ensure land tenure, livelihood and food security of the forest-dwelling scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers, to strengthen the conservation regime of the forest, and it gives responsibilities and authority to forest rights holders for sustainable use, conservation of biodiversity and maintenance of ecological balance. Now let's discuss about declining forest produces. Mere granting of ownership over minor forest produce or MFPs will not improve tribal livelihoods. Overall production of MFPs, except of tendu leaves, has fallen rapidly due to monoculture plantation by the Forest Department. Silvicultural practices of plant species such as teak in place of sal yields no recurrent product for gathering. Moreover, the important MFPs continue to be nationalized, that is, these can be sold only to government agencies. In 2022, it was reported that the minor forest produce in Western Ghats has declined. After a study of resources indicated a declining trend, Kerala Forest Research Institute had launched an augmentation program with the aid of National Medicinal Plants Board. In Chhattisgarh, earnings from the collection of tendu leaves were affected due to the influx of cheaper labor from Bihar. Now moving on to the importance of the Act. The Act provides 4 types of rights. First is title rights. It gives the right of ownership to land farmed by tribals up to 4 hectares. Use rights. Right to extract minor forest produce, grazing areas and pastoral routes, etc. The right to rehabilitation in case of illegal eviction or forced displacement. Forest management right. It includes the right to protect, regenerate or conserve or manage any community forest resource. This Act expands the mandate of 5th and 6th Schedule of the Constitution of India. It democratizes the forest governance by recognizing community forest resource rights. Now moving on to the challenges. Lack of awareness levels among the tribal people about forest rights, especially in the scheduled areas located remotely. Lands possessed by the tribal people, including the lands recognized under the FRA, are small, of poor quality and less fertile. The lack of irrigation facilities forces them to depend only on rainfall. A majority of the tribal communities in India are poor and landless. Implementation of the Forest Rights Act has been slow and the rights of forest dwellers are still being violated. There is lack of political will to implement this act. This may be because assertion of power of forest-dwelling communities is in direct conflict with the agenda of ease of doing business, and there is lack of coordination between the tribal revenue and forest department on implementation of the act. Now lastly, let's discuss about the way forward. Reducing poverty has direct linkage with rights, especially when it comes to forest dwellers who are primarily dependent on natural resources. Bamboo and tendu are important forest produce which gives high monetary returns. There are other important forest produces also which provides seasonal and substantial income to the communities such as mahua, sal, char, tamarind and medicinal plants. Rather than focusing on one high-yielding species, we should focus on ensuring sustainable livelihood. Communities should have the freedom to determine the nature of plantation prices and have the right to sell, etc. Processing centers should be established as smaller value addition to the existing products can yield higher returns. Now it's time for the practice questions. First of all, note down the prelims question that was asked in 2013 exam also. Under the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006, who shall be the authority to initiate the process for determining the nature and extent of individual or community forest rights or both? State Forest Department, District Collector or Deputy Commissioner, Tehsildar, Block Development Officer or Mandal Revenue Officer, or Gram Sabha. And now moving on to the mains question which was asked in 2020 exam also. Examine the status of forest resources of India and its resultant impact on climate change. So that's all for today. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching.